Can you hear me okay too?
Yeah. All right. Hello, hello, hello. This is Gail Nicholson coming at you with another Corona Spotlight 2020. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, my guest is an old friend. I shouldn't say it that way. We're not that old. We're not that old. Um, um,
No.
but I have known this lady since I was 9 years old. She helped deliver my first daughter, my first child ever. And I just adore her with everything in me. Please welcome Jennifer Lewandowski, Doula for Hire, and one of my besties. So thanks for joining us, Jen. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Thank, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I am very honored and thankful for you.
Awesome,
I can
awesome.
hear you fine.
Okay, good. We may be dealing with a little bit
Yeah.
of
Can
a,
you hear me?
yeah, a little bit of a sound delay on this. Jen's working on her phone, which the bandwidth, demons there kind of try to suck it away from us. But we're going to do the best that we can this morning.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. So, Jen, I want to start out asking you specifically, sorry about that, um, what exactly is a doula? And then we'll get into a couple of other things as well. So, can you define that for us?
Sure. So a doula actually, it's a Greek word, and it actually comes from, obviously, it's a Greek word, and it means a woman who serves. So a doula, can come in many different forms. Today's day and age, the two main forms are a birth doula and a postpartum doula. Now I'm trained and certified in both, but my main concentration is on birth doula. And being a woman that serves, what I do is I provide services for women in labor and through their birth. That includes emotional and physical support as well as knowledge based support. So it's me pulling from my bags of tricks, my knowledge to walk a couple. Um, it doesn't have to be a couple or a single mom, any one of the above, through the birth of their baby. I am non-medical, so I don't deliver the baby, but I walk them through kind of as like their guide, their mentor. Some people will actually say that um, it's kind of like hiring someone to be your epidural.
Explain that, because that's kind of an interesting point of view. So,
Yep. So I would say not all of my moms that I support um, get pain medication, but I would say 90% of them that hire me um, are looking for to go through a natural birth. Now, I still have some that come to me and they interview, and as soon as they interview, they say, I'm getting an epidural, but can I still have you and can I have support? And I say, absolutely, because the goal is for me to support you through your birth plan, not through any of my preconceived notions or anything. It's to support them, to be non-judgmental, to be non-opinionated, and to let them have the birth that they feel they want, and for me to give them the knowledge they need to walk them through it. So it's kind of like paying for your epidural, because I would say 90% of my clients do natural births and they rock it out.
nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, there's so much there. Okay, so let me kind of focus in for a second. Back to how you got into this. Okay. Now, mind you, for our listeners who don't know, like I said, I've known Jen since I was 9 years old. We used to play dolls in her basement, which her parents had set up with a whole like living room, dining room. We had refrigerators, we had baby alives that we would go to the store and get real baby food. and feed it to these poor baby alives, which I'm sure are sitting in a landfill somewhere all full of mold by now.
100%. 100%. I know.
But even at that age, Jen was all about what it took to become a mom, how your body went through changes. You were fascinated with this stuff, you know? And
Yes.
and 9 years later, 10 years later, when I was pregnant and the father was not in the picture, I can't tell you what peace it brought me to have you at my side during that, knowing that I wasn't alone because you were there.
Exactly.
And it made a really scary time for me a whole lot easier.
My heart. My heart. My
I
heart.
know, I'm like, um,
I know. I'm getting a little teary eyed.
but here's the thing, when I went in and was in labor, because I have such a tiny frame, my doctors foresaw this coming, that I was going to have a difficult labor. And you were there with me the whole way through. I mean, from showing up at the hospital that morning, being by my side as a breathing coach, as a person. Now, I don't know if you do this now as a doula, but you were like helping not too many people in the room, kind of helping manage that for me, so I didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
Yes.
All the way through to where the
Yes.
doctors decided, okay, this is not going to happen the way that it normally happens. We're going to have to take her in for surgery. And they gave me some drugs and they strapped me to a table. And the next thing I know, I look over and there's a woman there in a face mask. And I said to her, "Do you know where my friend Jennifer is?" And you said, "It's me, Gail."
I remember.
Right there in the delivery room
I'm
with
right
me.
here for you.
Right? So I am so absolutely thrilled
Exactly.
that this is exactly what you do now, because you are so good at it.
And thank you, Gail. I appreciate it. I mean, for only being, we were 19 and 20, for being so young, I knew that, like, I knew as you and I were reading through the books and stuff, I was like so excited to read through the books with you and to work on those things. And then I thought we rocked it out pretty well for a 19 and 20-year-old.
Yeah,
And, you know, and you honestly were like my first doula client. Didn't know what the word meant then, or that was even a thing.
right?
I just knew that I was going to be your support person, and I was dying for the day when you said, "Would you support me through this?" And I was like, "Yes." And so it's just so funny, hindsight, to see where I went with this. And the thing that's funny is, like, you're right, I always had this inkling for being a mother, for birthing, for breastfeeding, all of these things. And like, even after I had my own kids, I was still intrigued by it. I wasn't like, I'm done with this, whatever. I still loved the whole birth process, the pregnancy process. And it's weird how things happen in life, that just things get put in front of your face, and things that you might even see come to fruition 20 years later. And that's where I, heard the word from a friend at church, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you have the perfect personality to be a doula." I'm like, "Huh? What's that?" So 7 years ago, when I started this, I did not know what a doula was. And actually, it wasn't that popular 7 years ago. The last 3 years, I would say, it's become very popular. So went into it. I got trained. You could get trained and certified. A training is like 4 days. Certification took me another 9 months. It's reading books. It's writing synopsis on them. You also support 3 families through labor. They write about you and send it into the organization that is certifying you. And then doctors, nurses, midwives, and the families also basically write a review on you. And so I knew when I first did my first birth, a week after I did the training, hadn't even gotten the certification, and did it with the one doctor. She's like, "I want your business cards. Like, you're one of the best I've ever dealt with." I'm thinking, I just did my first one, but okay. And so, when I was like, all right, but when you have a gift, and I just think, all the the hires above for when you got a gift and you are using it, it oftentimes doesn't even seem like a job. I might get tired in the job, but not of the job. So let me explain to you a little bit when exactly what you're describing. I will help. It's basically being by the side of the mother, and if there's a partner, a spouse, they don't realize that 50% of the time I am there for the spouse. So a lot of these, whether it's a husband, a boyfriend, I also service same-sex couples as well. And, regardless of who the spouse is, they don't realize that I am there for them because they aren't the birthing person. Majority of mine are male, female, and they've got a husband or a male spouse, and they've never birthed before either. And it's like, asking them to go in and to do something that's so foreign to them. So they get to bring their level of anxiety down too, because they know Jen's going to be there to guide us. And a lot of them are willing to help, but they don't know the first thing about where do I start. And a husband is not, I always say this too, that, when the woman is laboring, she's not going to be able to say, hey, babe, do you remember on page 73, that comfort measure? Can you do that? And he's going to be like, what?
Yeah.
So you're that knowledge base. And I'll give you a little analogy from one of the midwives that I work very closely with. She said, if you had two couples going on a European trip, one couple hired a tour guide and the other one didn't. Well, they're both going to go on the same trip, but the one that has the tour guide is probably going to start the trip off a lot less anxious. You're also not going to go to the restaurants that rake you over the coals and aren't true authentic food. You're not going to go to the the attractions that are not good, or they'll tell you when to get when to book the attractions, so that right, or the restaurants, the plane to get on, the train, so you don't miss a train going to Amsterdam or whatever. They've done this, and you kind of follow them around like a little mama duck, so to say.
Yeah.
Well,
I would
they
imagine
both have done
the experience will be a much richer one because you're actually able to enjoy it without the anxiety of, are we doing this right? Are we at the right place? Oh my gosh, did we get just, yeah, absolutely.
Right. So they both from the European trip and say, well, I did the European trip, but they are going to be able it's fairly likely that the couple that hired the tour guide is going to have a much better experience.
Yeah.
And you have to attribute it to women. Think about and how much we put into weddings, which are special moments in our lives. And sometimes we don't take the time and energy. Think of the time that we plan to actually prepare for a wedding, for this monumental event in our life. Sometimes we don't spend the time or the money or educate ourselves on the good, the bad, and the indifferent when we're going into our birth. And so if you can kind of look at those analogies, it gives a good idea of why it's so beneficial. Plus the statistics for hiring our doula, it's about 50 to 60% reduction in C-section. There's a 40% reduction in epidural request. None of my clients have ever gotten the IV medications, which are narcotics that are put through your IV. Much less chance of forceps and vacuum delivery and episiotomy. So there's a lot that goes into it, and a lot of stuff that we do prior, through the pregnancy and the month before, to prep our bodies to have the most optimal experience.
Right. I remember as well with my daughter's birth 4 years ago. The daughter that you helped me deliver her baby boy. When he was coming up for delivery, they had her create a birth plan. And thankfully, she and her husband's a Marine sergeant. They were on base doing it all. So they had this birth plan. But my daughter is someone who is, Here's exactly how I want it. And if it
Right.
deviates from this, you will discuss it with me before any changes are made. You don't get to just go throw that out the window. It's an emergency situation. So I would imagine
Right.
that it would be helpful whether you have a spouse or not to also have that person with the background knowledge when an emergency situation comes up where they might want to throw your birth plan out the window and just do what's
Right.
most convenient for the doctors, nurses, and hospital. That you've got
Exactly.
that other person that's not inside of it, the spouse, you know,
Right.
um, where the spouse can just focus on calming the birthing mother, and you can have that educated conversation with them. I
Right.
would imagine that that is like valuable beyond understanding for a lot of people.
Exactly. Exactly. You're exactly right. And so a lot of my job too is advocating for my clients. Some of those things are prior to even the birth when they meet for the interview. I've done this for 7 years, so I've birthed in several hospitals with several different practices. And if you've done that, so much, you get to know the ins and outs of the hospitals and the ins and out of different practices. So if someone comes to me and says, I'm really looking for, a natural birth, and they tell me the practice that they're with, I'll sit there and I know that maybe it's not the most conducive practice, that some of the doctors want you in your stirrups on your back because it's convenient for them. So I'll help them navigate through that to find the best practice, the best doctors, the best hospital that's actually going to help them achieve their birth plan.
Excellent, excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Now, what about
Yeah.
when situations go not according to plan, and sadly, maybe the baby doesn't make it full term? What happens when you have a doula supporting you and then something happens to the baby? Not because of the doula, but during the normal process of gestation.
So are you, so like if there's a stillbirth or, so now because I book so far out, and a lot of my prior clients know that the minute they pee on their stick, they're usually sending me a picture on a text, and they're saying, can you put me down for October of 2020? And so, because they know I book up quickly. So the thing about that is, there I do have, women that miscarry during that time, because they tell me at 4, 6, 7 weeks that they're
Mm-hmm.
pregnant. Put me, because I take 3 to 4 clients a month is what is conducive for me. And so they know that they'll call me ahead of time, or, and let me put it on there. So I have had some of those miscarriages. I also am trained as a stillbirth day doula.
Okay.
So in the event that a baby, is farther along gestation and there's demise, I also will support them through. Now, they give an initial deposit. There will be no fee I do that pro bono. My stillbirth day births are pro bono, just because my heart just could not say, oh, by the way, let me support that. Stillbirth day doula is also something else that I'm certified in as well. I also teach childbirth ed classes as well. But stillbirth day doula is not just if there's a miscarriage, a stillbirth. It also is if you have, let's say you have this couple, and at their 20-week ultrasound, something is, not good. And they say that, the baby might make it full term. If it does, it's going to live a very short lifespan. Unfortunately, I've already gone through that. Very difficult, but you're still there to support them. They've already made this relationship with you. They've already put you by their side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the one person that sometimes brings that peace in their world of chaos at this point.
Yeah.
So yes, if that happens, Gail, I do, I interview, I take the deposit, but the remainder, is if there were where I supported them through the birth and or a stillbirth, I would be there and support them through that and move along accordingly.
Gotcha. And respectfully so. I know that there's
Right.
a deep reverence in you, that makes it okay for people around you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, for people who might want to get on the list, so to speak, as early as
Right.
possible, what is the best way to reach out to you? Is it the website, jenthedoula.com, or
Yes.
is there a better way? There's a contact form on the website?
Yep. There's a contact form on my website. That's the best way. I get an email and I respond back to you. Sometimes if all the information isn't there, the first couple things that I'll ask is, where do you live? Now, I've done a couple of my initial births that were out in Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
Those were really tough because, you know, from me where I am, it's a good hour in decent traffic. And if you've gone to a 24-hour birth and then you have to drive home after that, I've done a few. And so I might recommend another doula over in the Ann Arbor area. So I ask things like, when are you due? Then I have to check my calendar to see if they're available. Then we interview. We usually meet at a coffee shop for about an hour or so, and they can bring all their questions and concerns. And that's how they start the process. We interview. And when we're interviewing, I'm interviewing them and they're interviewing me. We want it to be a great fit where our personalities fit, because we don't want animosity. We don't want anyone to feel like it's just not the right fit, personality wise.
And sometimes it's not even a matter of personality. It's something I can't really put my finger on. I don't vibe with that person. She's not the one. And by all means, find the right one, because during that time when the relationship is at its most highest need is when it's also going to be at its most uncomfortable for the birth mom, you know?
Yes. It is such an intimate experience. And you have to feel comfortable with me. I have to feel comfortable with you, because now I do have to say I haven't really been in those situations. I just kind of jive.
Yeah, I can't imagine, knowing you, Jen, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of people that are going, yeah, she's just not the one. Because you do make it feel safe. You do know what the hell you're doing, you know?
Well, thank you. And, you know, as Gail well knows, my Facebook might be a little more like people know where I'm at, but a person in general, I'm all about love and respect. And I love to hear other sides. I'm very inquisitive about, I don't shut myself off to what other people are thinking and saying and doing. And same with, like I said, same-sex couples, you know, different religions. I'm highly well known in the Jewish community, have been to brisses and baby namings and Passover with my Jewish clients. I have, you know, a Muslim couple who she's full burqa, and some of the most amazing births and things that have enlightened my life. So I'm there to support you through your birth, not through what Jen wants or Jen's opinions or Jen's thoughts. This is what you want. And you really need to find someone who they don't pass judgment when they're sitting with you during the interview. They give you, you know, unbiased information, and they give you pros and cons of everything that you're thinking you want, so that you feel that you are, and then you make the right informed decision. That's my job, is to educate you fully, and then you make the decision. And you want to circumcise your kid and your son, or you don't want to circumcise it. I may have, I may not have. It's not about me.
Right.
It's about them. And I find it so rewarding. I find it so rewarding to be part of so many different people and lifestyles and stuff. It's just, it's really cool.
It sounds like it. I just had a question on the tip of my head that I wanted to ask. Oh, nationally speaking, because I didn't mention this earlier. like in the past, we're broadcasting this out to Facebook Live. So if you're watching the Facebook
Sure.
Live, give us some hearts. For the first time ever, this is also being live streamed to YouTube. So it is going out there globally. So I just want everybody
Lovely.
to know that Jen does her work around southeastern Michigan. If you are not in southeastern Michigan, don't
Yes.
don't hesitate to reach out to Jen, because she knows doulas and has access to doulas all over the country.
Right.
Correct?
And
You can refer them out.
Well, and if they want to look nationally, I am certified through DONA, DONA.org. DONA is worldwide. It is the international certifying organization of doulas around the world. I could, with my certification, go to Germany and be recognized there too. So around the world, if you want to look for me personally or a doula in your area, and it'll give you a little bit about them, you go to dona.org, and that will give you a doula in your area, and then call around, do some interviews, and see what works.
Excellent. Good to know. All right, my dear, any final thoughts for our watchers and listeners around the world and in your area before we shut this down today?
Sure. I would hire your peace of mind, and for that hand to hold with you alongside your birth. And I just highly recommend that you interview and you find the right personality, because it's so important that you have someone that fits and that is like-minded, so that you can achieve the birth plan that you want.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jennifer. And thank you again.
You're welcome.
For joining me 30 some years ago when it really counted. So thank you. And have a fantastic week, Facebook.
Everybody too. Stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.
When you open yourself up to actual energy work, makes that recovery progress so much faster. That recovery is possible. You do not have to live as a victim until your last days. You have unbelievable strength, and I know that because you're still here. Do you want to create something completely unrecognizable with your life? I can show you how.